Now on Radio 1, part 1 of the two-part documentary about the Pet Shop Boys.
We're certainly not about the truth.
The truth, we've never been about the truth.
It's basically the Neil Tennant story. I'm just an adjunct.
Of the two Pet Shop Boys, Chris is the icon, ultimately.
Well, I think Neil probably wanted fame and success to make the point to his school or whatever. Always like, ha, take that. He always mentions the fact that he didn't used to like football and it's kind of getting his own back. He was the kind that used to nick off school and go to the library and do the theatre, so it was a triumph of his type over your footballing type. What's the word you would use for that? Revenge.
I wanted to be a pop star from a very early age. Firstly, because it looked, in the 60s when I was a kid, it looked like a really exciting thing to be. Secondly, I was physically insecure and I wanted to be loved. Thirdly, I always thought I could do it.
I don't know what I've got down to be, really. I don't know. I've found the whole thing really strange, puzzling.
I don't think Chris did want to be a pop star. It just happened anyway. People often think that what we're doing is some sort of piss take when it's not. We are often unintentionally funny. We are often perceived to be ironic when we're not being ironic. People assume that we're somehow distanced and detached, whereas in fact what we're normally trying to do is communicate something that really is very, very real. And in our lives we've dealt with many difficult things in our personal lives, and they tend to be reflected in our songs.
Typical deadpan vocals. Actually, they're not deadpan at all. They're kind of charged with tons of emotion.
We've been thinking about wigs for a long time.
I liked people to think that we weren't dexterous musicians. It's one of those things you'd be embarrassed about. We're always given the impression that someone else did it, you know. You don't want to appear that you're too talented, do you?
Pet Shop Boys always react against things. You know, if there's a Brit pop explosion going on, the Pet Shop Boys are to be found singing in Spanish. We sort of can't help that.
Answering questions from fans, November 1996.
Oh, good one. Have you ever had any ghostly experiences? Emily, West London.
No.
Neither have I. Good question then.
Right, well, the time I met Neil, I was a student at Liverpool University. I think I had quite long hair, probably a bit geeky. I was doing my year out in London, and I just moved to a really horrible little bedsit in Chelsea, which just happened to be around the corner from Neil's. I was probably a bit studenty. Knew I didn't really want to do architecture full time. I just knew that I didn't really want a normal life of working, being under stress and having no time to myself. But I didn't really think of any alternative. I've always wanted the same things, having lots of friends, partying and being happy. But I think I strive for that too much and inevitably end up unhappy, sad and depressed and lonely. I spend a lot of my time thinking that I'm not having as good time as everyone else. So I was probably very much like that at the time. I probably thought, well, this is pretty miserable, isn't it, being stuck down here in a bedsit with sky blue and orange walls and a one-ring cooker which you could only make something like baked beans on toast on. I was 21, going nowhere.
When I first met Chris, I was 27 years old. I was living in a studio flat on the King's Road in Chelsea. I was working for ITV Books. I was doing things like the Look In Pop Annual, a series of books called Animals in Action. I finished a relationship with a girlfriend at the end of the previous year. I was musically into new wave kind of music. Elvis Costello, The Clash. Right at the same time I met Chris, suddenly smash hits came into my life. And you can look back at it now and see that it was a time of complete change. If you believed in astrology, my planets must have been all in alignment or whatever they do when your life changes.
Listening back to Unfinished Songs, August 1996.
Oh, this is a good track. This is a bit more like it. Guess what was number one the week we did that record? It's totally obvious. Babylon Zoo.
I'd always loved music and everything, and I used to enjoy just doodling around on the piano for hours on end and that. But I never really thought you could actually do anything with it. It's just not really an option, is it, being a pop star?
I'd always written songs since I was really young, since I was about 12 years old. I'd always written songs. As at primary school I wanted to write a musical, so I've been wanting to do that for a long time. I thought musically at this time, because I was 27 years old, I thought I'd missed the boat. I mean, it was just a reflex to me to write songs, really. It was just something I always did anyway.
Other people become pop stars, don't they? Other people become footballers and things like that. It's not what you do. I think I must be quite fatalistic, really, because I wasn't surprised either when it all kind of happened. It just seemed, oh, you know, this is what's going to happen. But Neil's more of a driving force anyway, so he's more likely to have kind of made something happen. I would never do that.
TFI Friday, November 1996.
You met 16 years ago.
Yeah, 1981, I think.
1981. Can you just, because I know it was in an electronic shop on the King's Road in London.
Still there, Chelsea Records.
So who talked to who first?
Well, wouldn't it be me?
I was going to say it was, yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh. I'm not...
But he's not the most forthcoming of men, though, is he? So, I mean, you know, when you asked him, because didn't you think he's a bit dull? I'm not going to talk to him
No, I
anymore.
thought it was funny.
Did you?
I think he made some kind of joke or something.
Did you?
The first thing we talked about was, well, in my recollection of things, was all our favourite records. I know that we both really liked David Bowie. I remember we went to the pub across from Neil's flat and chatted for ages, and Neil probably first suggested writing some music together.
I mean, it always seems to me surprising that we decided to write a song together. I never quite clearly remember us actually doing it. But I had the synthesizer and Chris was fascinated by it. He just immediately started improvising something. And I, had this acoustic guitar. I suppose I sort of vaguely played along. He had a different way of looking at music from me. I looked at music in terms of chords, melodies and words, and Chris looked at it as rhythm, bass lines, and melody now. But even now, we look at music in a different way, which is a good thing. We fill each other's gaps.
Trying to record a new single, August 1996.
Shall we listen to this through from the top? Are you gonna listen?
I am listening. I can't switch my ears off,
I don't think that's true, actually.
Well, I cannot concentrate.
Bit
It's
of
not loud
volume.
enough.
I don't speak the language, I can't understand the words. When angels fear to tread, I sometimes want and try to talk. But how can I be wrong?
Oh, I don't know. I sort of think if we're going to do this, we should start from scratch and make a new record of it.
There's no point starting anything now, is there?
No point starting now. And what time is it? It's 7:10.
I always prefer album tracks to singles anyway, though. That's my problem. I don't normally like hit singles. I mean, when's George Michael ever written a single? He never writes singles, does he? They're all album tracks. Well, Wham, yeah. And that was all Andrew Ridgeley anyway. Yeah. And that other one, David Austin, it was all David Austin and Andrew Ridgeley. We could speed it up and make it more single-like.
That's what I'm saying. If we do anything, we've got to start from scratch.
Anyway,
pretty
let's
much.
listen to this, and then before Coronation Street starts in 10 minutes...
We won't be able to do that.
Neil, I can knock up a new bass line and stuff really quick. Takes literally seconds.
We started off this trying to do an edit of Discoteca and Bilingual together, and we couldn't do it because it becomes a medley. It starts to sound a bit like Jive Bunny. It
Come
does.
on, everybody. Come on,
everybody.
You can actually sing that over it.
Yeah, it's the right rhythm. Oh yeah, this is it. Come on, everybody. Actually, I think it's a waste of time, it's really.
We need to write something more like the Spice Girls for the next single, don't we? Neil, at the time I met him, looked very booky. He wore glasses and... Oh, I know what he was. He always used to wear a Just 17 sweatshirt inside out. But he didn't look like he had pop star potential at all. In fact, I was amazed at the transformation. Stunned.
He was 5 years younger than me. I thought he was quite unusual. He was very self-conscious, in a way. He had outrageous opinions, which of course he still does. Or you could interpret them as outrageous. He was sort of unsure of himself. Actually, it's a strange mixture that he still is. He was unsure of himself, in some ways, but also completely sure and clear about his likes and dislikes. 100% clear about his likes and dislikes. I'm sort of the opposite. I'm reasonably sure of myself. I'm never 100% sure of my likes and dislikes.
Answering questions from fans, November 1996.
I have a question to Chris, but I think it's an embarrassing one. Really? Oh, it is an embarrassing one. I'd like to ask you, if it is too cheeky, what would you do if your private parts started to itch when you are in public, on stage, during interview, etc.? We all know the answer to this. Would you scratch no matter how embarrassing it would be, or would you wait until it stops itching? Claire, Hungary.
I would obviously scratch. Just like I would pick my nose.
And indeed have done on television several times.
Scratch my bottom, do anything like that. I've got a problem with that. I wouldn't find it embarrassing. Because everyone has an itch every now and then. They're there to be scratched.
Many's the time I've said to Chris, do you have to pick your nose live on television? The immediate impact of me meeting Chris was that he liked different kinds of music to me. He liked imagination, body talk, which I was sort of a bit appalled by in a way, because it's not the kind of music I would have thought was cheesy. I mean, I was someone who had one of those grey raincoats that one later thought of as the Garba Vecchio and the Bunnymen found. We both liked Soft Cell, Tainted Love, Say Hello, Wave Goodbye, and Bed Sitter.
And now I'm all alone in Bedsidland, my only home.
And that synthesizer thing that was happening definitely interested both of us.
We used to do these sort of demos of songs, recording from the keyboard to the cassette player and then overdubbing all the time, putting loads of different things on and trying to remake these electronic dance records, use sequences and stuff, all played manually, thinking everything we were doing was absolutely brilliant.
Chris didn't like the kind of words I wrote. It was at this time that Chris made his remark to me, which he can't remember making, that I should make the words more sexy and not be so singer-songwritery. And that definitely changed the way I thought about writing lyrics. I soon realised we were writing songs that I would never have written myself before. I deliberately wrote the kind of words that I thought Chris would like, about very strong, passionate feelings, rather than any kind of analysis or anything like that. It was more about a sense of anticipation or the excitement of going out into London. London seemed exciting in those days. Chris and I have always walked around London a lot together. Even now, you'd be liable to bump into us wandering down Dean Street or something.
I think we were very influenced by Depeche Mode at the time, so you tended to get sort of plinky-plonky kind of synth sort of sounds.
We had this song called Bubba Dubba Dubba Dum, and for some reason I thought this stupid chorus. We had another song which had spoken verse and then just had a little theme as the chorus. It was the most unusual song. It's called Oh Dear. I was walking down the high street in the middle of the night. Someone caught my eye and I nearly died of fright. Crossed the road to whisper something secret in my ear, and now I'll never be the same again. Oh dear. We used to think it was really funny, this. I was walking down the high street in the middle of the night. Someone caught my eye and I nearly died of fright. Crossed the road to whisper something secret in my ear, and now I know I'll never be the same again. Oh dear. Anyway, I looked up in the back of Melody Maker, a little 8-track studio, and we went and made this demo. We called ourselves West End. All the record companies we sent them to rejected it. And anyway, the wonderful thing that happened was the guy that owned the studio, Ray Roberts he was called, he was quite impressed. And after that, in that autumn 1982, Chris and I started going into his studio.
Running a demo studio, 99% of people are totally boring, I'm afraid. I gradually began to realise that there was something a bit different about their songs. And I really got genuinely interested in extracting their talent, making the most of it. They would come in on a Saturday, maybe around about lunchtime. The main room, the studio, was where we all worked. And the control room was a little room under the pavement, actually. It used to be a coal hole, believe it or not.
And during that period, we wrote loads of songs. We'd often write 2 a night or 3 a night or whatever. We wrote things like Jealousy, Rent, It's a Sin.
And then one day Chris said, why don't you sing Let's Make Lots of Money? And he was playing this thing. And I think he actually sang Let's Make Lots of Money. And I thought, I've got the brains, you've got the looks, let's make lots of money. We wrote the whole song immediately in about 5 minutes. And we thought it was funny, we were laughing while recording it. We were laughing.
Discussing the concept of irony, November 1996.
The problem is in the age of hip, where everything's got to be cool and hip, something which we've never ever chased, the only way people can translate what we do into hip is by saying it's done with ironic detachment. That immediately, when you say detachment, that immediately plunges it into the realms of cool and hip. And so, so it's quite nice. People then think what you're doing is cool and hip. But in fact, there is very little that we do that's got ironic detachment about it.
And therein lies the irony.
And therein, yeah, that's a good point.
Isn't it ironic?
With us, when we are ironic, it's an ironic sense of humour. So the first ironic record we made was Let's Make Lots of Money.
Oh, was that meant to be ironic?
It's your title,
Well, I didn't mean it ironically.
didn't you?
Oh, let's make tons of money, tons of dosh.
I think you did, actually.
You post-rationalised it because you thought it wouldn't be right on to sing that, really.
I wouldn't have wanted to sing it anyway, non-ironically.
No.
I thought it was a sort of, I thought it was meant to be ironic. Anyway, I think you did too. I think Chris is being ironic right now.
I mean, it's a very exciting time musically because there were all the sort of underground clubs used to play a type of music that no one else ever heard. Whereas these days, everyone hears the same music. At that time, there was a whole genre of music that very few people knew about. A lot of the high energy music and Patrick Cowley and all that kind of, really simple electronic stuff with a great atmosphere and a lot of energy to it. And you felt that you were part of a fantastic, privileged sort of clique. And you felt that you were tapped into something new and you could use that as a vehicle for you expressing your own music.
It was in heaven, somewhere like that, I can't remember where, that Chris heard Passion by Bobby O. And he asked the DJ what the record was, and the DJ said it's Passion by the Flirts. And this particular record suddenly became a major inspiration for what we were trying to do.
Listening back to unfinished songs, August 1996.
Hey, I've done one of those for a while.
Time for more of these. I used to like music when it was like this. Sorry.
It's like Passion,
I did.
P-A-S-S.
When I first heard Passion by the Flirts, I just thought, this is so great that I don't need anything that I've ever heard before. I just thought this is the starting point of everything that I'm going to like. And it was so minimal in electronic. I just loved the fact that the bass line was just an octave, just so simple and yet so strong. It made me feel totally exhilarated. I used to play it non-stop and the record just built and built and built. And the way the song built into this climax.
I wanna be a woman, come on and be my man. This feeling that I have for you, I understand.
It seemed like a totally new form of music to me. It was just going to change everything. Everything else just become redundant at that point. And then kept hearing other records that I discovered were also Bobby O. Not necessarily the same, but things like She Has a Way. I was just totally inspired by it. Yeah, like I do. I mean, that's what I'm like. I get really excited by things like that.
Unfinished Songs, August 1996.
I love stuff like this, I'm sorry. I can't help it.
Very 80s sounding. I need you.
I've always liked that. I don't think we're 80s enough. That's our problem.
Let's just be 80s. What everyone wants from us.
No, I didn't know anything about Bobby O at all. Just that his name appeared on all these records. And also it was very exciting because they were only available on import and they were quite expensive. So you really felt that you were getting something rather special, something you could only get from 2 record shops in London or something. And I don't know what I thought Bobby O would be like. I probably just thought he was some old producer sort of person, not what we discovered he was, you know, some sort of funky Italian mad type of person.
I was editing the Smash Hits yearbook, and they needed someone to interview the Police in New York. And I said, if I don't want to do that, I don't really like the Police, can't you get someone else to do it? And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and see Bobby O and play him our demo tape that we've been making. And I told Chris that was a great idea.
This quasi-shy, nervous-looking guy walks in the room, about in his 20s, very clean cut, and he said, oh, hi, I'm Neil Tennant. I'm a big fan of yours, and here I am. I always love talking to people who have been fans of mine.
I think he'd forgotten I was coming maybe, but anyway, he perked up and we went down to the cafe, the Applejack, for lunch, and we just chatted about the records, you know, and music. And towards the end of the lunch, I mentioned that I was in this sort of group, and he immediately said, oh, let's make a record. I was completely astonished. I said, but you haven't heard anything yet. And he said, anyone can make a record, can't they, kind of thing.
He had, of course, had a British accent because he's British. And at that time, British accents were very in vogue. So I thought, when it turned out that he was an artist, I thought, well, let's see if there's anything here. Because he did have this British accent, and that in itself was intriguing from our company's perspective because we didn't have any British artists at that time. There was something about Neil that I thought would be interesting. Specifically, if there was some way we could take this image of this kind of guilty-looking, innocent-looking, Catholic-looking, proper-looking British guy and package it in a way where it would cater to a high-energy disco audience, but not really say anything.
And so we went back to his office and I played him. And that spent lots of money, the original demo version. And he said, wow, I could do that. I could do this. I could do this. And I remember thinking, well, I'm sure you could. I mean, it's based on you, ultimately, let's face it.
Answering questions from fans, November 1996.
Oh, God. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a musician? Give up. That's from Marin's Santa Fe.
If you think you're any good, stick at it. Well, it's true. And also just keep doing it, you know.
Yeah, just do it if you enjoy doing it, and then something might happen if you're lucky. If it's meant to happen. If not, give up.
When people say how, you know, I've sent all my tapes to AR departments, you know, and I can't get any notice, that's why.
That's what we did. Didn't work.
Yeah, that didn't work.
Doesn't work.
We met Bobby O. That was a different thing. Well, we went for the niche that we wanted to be in, didn't we? As we still did, we still do. We went to the person who we were copying and asked them to produce our records. And it worked. It was like the most exciting thing that ever happened in my life. I was just on cloud 9 thinking, wow, we're going to make a record with Bobby O, I can't believe it.
I got phone calls saying, I've met Bobby O and he wants to do a record with us, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, you know, couldn't sleep on that. I was really, really, really excited. Just the thought of going to America, because I'd never imagined even going to America in my life. It just seemed ridiculous, you know.
I thought of this rap one day. I was staying at my cousin's house in Nottingham, and we'd been watching some Jimmy Cagney kind of gangster film. And when I went to bed, the lines, sometimes you're better off dead, there's a gun in your hand, and it's pointing at your head, came into my mind, and so I got out of bed and wrote them down on a piece of paper. I loved the record, The Message by Grandmaster Flash. I was always wanting to do something like that. When I got back to London, I lay on my floor in my flat, and it did it as a sort of stream of consciousness thing. I was just kind of going for it, and I was speaking it to myself in a kind of rap voice. It was kind of meaningless in a way, but it sort of sounded exciting, and it maybe did mean something as well. I used to spend hours rationalising it afterwards.
You are listening to the documentary about the Pet Shop Boys on Radio 1.
We had to choose a name before we went to New York. We thought Pet Shop Boys sounded a bit too dodgy. It's like a lot of things that we do. Even now I feel a bit embarrassed about the name of the group. Oh yeah, what's the group? Oh yeah, Pet Shop Boys. And then we thought, oh sod it, we'll do it anyway. I had a friend in Liverpool, his mum went, oh that's a fruity name. and it is, isn't it? It just sounds like there's something funny going on. I mean, it's a true story though. I mean, it's the reason the whole name Pet Shop Boys came about was because I had some friends who worked in a pet shop, and we used to call them the Pet Shop Boys. We never really thought. Actually, we used to joke that it would be good to do "How much is that dog in the window?" by the Pet Shop Boys, and then of course we took the name for ourselves.
I said, go back to England, get your partner, and I'll bring you back to New York and we'll cut a record. And that's what we did.
We agreed that he would pay the studio time and we would get together the money for the fares. As you know what, I had no money, I got a bank loan. Because Chris borrowed the money from his grandmother to go over, and I borrowed the money from the bank. We went to Unique Studios early in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. Bobby O programmed the drum machine.
He programmed a drum pattern, which I think was based on Billie Jean King. Billie Jean King? That's a tennis player. What was it called? Billie Jean. Right. It was basically just the same drum pattern as Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
And Chris and I were just told to play. And we were completely nervous. And we started to play this instrumental we'd written. And I said, you can do that rap over this. Bobby comes through and says, oh, hey, this sounds great, guys. This sounds really good. And so, okay, let's do it. And so we both stood there and we played it all live. Dum, 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 dum. And he put it onto tape straight away. And he says, right, now vocal.
When I heard those lyrics, West End Girls, I thought, this thing just needs that kind of dark choir, that droning choir in there, very Catholic, very Neanderthal-like. To this day, I don't really know what Neil was trying to say in it, but I have a feeling that it was pretty much pitting a West End against an East End, pitting a male against a female, being able to interchange them at some point, and one is an underground dive bar, and the other one is from a different side of town or society. It's very class-oriented. So I thought that the best way to merge the two is by creating a dark sound underneath it, like these dark choirs, and then on top of it having this kind of happy, bouncing bass line, which kind of was symbolic in some respects of the positive sides of it. It really isn't a disco record as much as it is a dance record with dark tones underneath it. That's why I think great art comes from suffering.
Half an hour later, that's West End Girls recorded.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand, it's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the police, there's a madman around, running down underground to a dive bar in a West End town. In a West End town, a dead end world. The East End boys and West End girls. In a West End town, a dead end world. East End boys and West End girls. West End girls. We went back to England, and I remember going to Smash Hits because everyone wanted to hear what we'd done. I paid them, spent lots of money.
I've had enough of scheming and messing around with jerks. My car is parked outside, I'm afraid it doesn't work. I'm looking for a partner, someone who gets things fixed. Ask yourself this question, do you want to be rich? I've got the brains, you've got the looks. Let's make lots of money. You've got the brawn, I've got the brains. Let's make lots of money.
And of course everyone was very trendy and they all liked Pet Shop Boys, the hip-hop instrumental best. And I was too embarrassed to play people, West End Girls, because I thought it sounded too personal. And I didn't like I thought my voice sounded too wimpy doing the vocal. I used to play the songs to David Bostock, Scoffer he was always known as, one of the designers at Smash Hits. And he was really quite encouraging about them. He was always known in the office for having good ears, Scoffer. He would tell you the Cure are going to be really popular and you'd think it would be ridiculous. And then they weren't, all the rest of it.
But I guess the time I really realised that how good they were was when they came back from New York with his Bobby O demo, because I was the only person that Neil knew who had a double head tape deck. So I was basically duping up all his demos to send out to the record companies, and it was One More Chance, which was the track that really blew me away, that they'd done with Bobby O. And I just thought, wow, this is really, really good.
Just give me one more chance, just give me one more chance, just give me one more chance tonight.
One of the things I'm always staggered about the Pet Shop Boys is kind of Chris's dour demeanour that he has on stage. He used to bounce into the office and kind of be really full of what was going on. But he was desperate to design a page on the magazine, and I used to fob him off going, oh yes Chris, yes of course you can design a page on the magazine, no problem, no problem. But he did persist, he persisted, and I think he had a hand in designing an Aztec Camera song lyric in Smash Hits actually. Neil always had this idea that he'd be this Svengali record producer. I think he was always in kind of tongue-in-cheek way, sort of sit around imagining fictitious bands. But at the time we had sort of 3 young girls in the office, and he kind of invented a band called the Saturday Girls, which basically kind of very Bobby O style, 3 girls fronting his music. And in fact I managed to get into one of his imaginary bands, which was the spin-off band from Saturday Girls. They were called the Saturday Lads. The song he invented for us was very much a kind of Joy Division song called Vivisection. I'm sure you can imagine it because he used to sing it incessantly all day as he was doing his work, typing away, writing. He'd be playing an imaginary sort of Peter Hook bass going ding 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 Vivisection, Vivisection. We only had one song. I think if I imagine right, he had some not very PC ideas for the video actually, but it was the early 80s.
Neil listens back to the Pet Shop Boys' first commissioned work, November 1996.
Stick it on, stick it on, stick it on, stick it on. The Smash Hits collection. Stick it on. 6 free stickers. Swap them on. 1 free album. Stick it on. With today's Smash Hits. Stick it on. Smash Hits. 6 free stickers. Pass it on.
Sorry, it's a masterpiece. It's an advert for a Smash Hits relaunch issue where they gave away an album and you put Panini, they're called Panini stickers in it. And Dave helped with Smash Hits very generously. Chris and I do the music. And we earned £500. It was actually the first thing we ever earned as musicians. So the first time West End Girls was released, that's the Bobby O version, it wasn't a hit.
That was the ambition fulfilled, was West End Girl being released. We'd made a record in New York with Bobby O and then be able to buy it on import from the dance shop, an official Bobby O record. So we'd achieved everything we'd ever wanted to. I could never imagine it being a hit. It just seemed ridiculous, you know.
Well, when West End Girls came out, we did some press. And the first interview we did, I did a telephone interview with Betty Page. And Betty Page said, well, what about the name, Neil? I said, well, you know, we had 2 friends who worked at the Pet Shop, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, Neil, come on. Everyone knows where you got it from. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I'm not that naive, you know. I said, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? She said, well, you know, it's gay slang in New York for this sexual perversion where you stick a hamster up your arse. And I was actually revolted. I said, what? She said, yo, don't pretend you don't know. Everyone knows about that in New York. I said, well, everyone may, but I've never heard of it. And I phoned up this friend of mine, David Keeps, New York. I said, do you know what Pet Shop Boys means in New York? And David Keeps said to me, wasn't it because you've got 2 friends who work in a pet shop or something? And I said, no, I'm putting hamsters up your bum. And he'd never heard of it, and I have a feeling he would have heard of it. So I think it's an urban myth. I think it's one of the great urban myths. And of course Richard Gere had the same thing attached to him several years later. But it's something that's followed us around.
I still don't believe that meaning anyway, the supposed meaning of the name Pet Shop Boys. Sexual practices with animals, or particularly hamsters or something. I still don't believe that anyone could possibly do that. And we certainly wouldn't base the name of our group on a deviant sexual practice. It's not the kind of thing we'd do.
And then, of course, the record came out. 2 weeks later, it's all over, isn't it? So that was that, really. It's totally bummed out. We thought we were doing something that no one else had done. And then, round about the time that West End Girls was released and wasn't a hit, there was a little high-energy boom. And at that point, we thought we'd missed the boat. And also, I was thinking I was old. In 1984, I was 30. And that just seems like ludicrous to start trying to want to be a pop star when you're 30. I mean, it's a bit pathetic, really. Anyway, we carried on writing songs. We had this slightly sleazy, sexy thing we were trying to do, and sort of slightly sad and tragic as well. Back then, I wanted to imply things and suggest things rather than do anything openly gay.
He is the head boy of a school of thoughts that plays in your intentions night and day. And you wait till later tonight. You wait till later tonight.
We always liked the fact that it kind of was and wasn't gay at the same time. So it was sort of a teasing thing. But also, to have stated things explicitly would no longer have been exciting and intriguing. We wanted them to be intriguing and exciting, these songs. Not stating the obvious, really.
I wish I could come across you in the club or in the queue and find you changed your mind for an everlasting time. Oh, an everlasting time.
We became disillusioned with Bobby. We felt we were a bit messed around by him a bit. And we suddenly felt the whole momentum was slipping away. That's why we decided not to carry on with them.
I was, of course, upset about it. I was upset about it corporately, and I was upset about it personally. But people have to do what they have to do. You can't legislate a person's behavior. You can't legislate a person's feelings. I have a habit of being very paternal about things. I'm a very paternal person. But I guess I sensed afterward that people may not need you as much as you think they do.
I remember it becoming a bit frustrating. Didn't feel that we were actually going anywhere. And that's probably when we decided we needed a manager.
And we asked Tom Watkins, who we met because his design company, XL, actually designed the cover of West End Girls when it first came out.
Neil thought Tom would be great because what you need is a big fat manager. Someone that would go into record companies and wind people up and hype the whole thing.
Tom got us a deal with EMI in London, which involved getting out of the deal with Bobby O in New York, which actually took quite a lot of time.
I had my own vision, which ultimately they obviously did not follow, and their success was evident that they might have been right. But my vision was a little bit broader, a little bit bigger. My vision was to liberate the world, or to liberate the disco community, the war for disco truth. You know, that's what I was looking to do. And that was my main thrust. And EMI's main thrust, of course, was to make money.
We went out shopping with a stylist, and I was thinking, all I want's a gold chain. And the stylist, all he wanted to do was get us wearing ripped jeans and sort of going to Oxfam shops. Well, I didn't want that. I wanted to go to the expensive shops. I just thought, wow, this is fantastic. We're going out shopping. I got a gold chain, which you can actually see on the cover of the single for Opportunities.
It was never going to be a problem what Chris was going to look like, because Chris was going to look like Chris. Chris always knew what he liked. I didn't really know what I wanted to be like, really.
Press photo argument, August 1996.
See, I don't like this at all. Oh my God, this is so classic. That's Murray's phone number. Oh, hi Murray, it's Neil. This press pack thing that's been sent over, there's a black and white picture. It's really awful. Well, can you go now and stop them using this black and white picture? It is They're using one that's not approved. I can't believe it's actually really awful of both of us.
It better not have gone out. And
Yes.
it's always the worst pictures of you
Yes.
that get used the most.
Well, can you go and check and call me back? And can you cancel its use totally now, please? This always happens. I mean, it's the most awful picture, though. It's like on Very, the picture that ends up being used everywhere for the press was this awful picture taken on the day of the Go West shoot, where I'm holding that arrow thing. We had all those beautiful pictures done. And the most common press one used was one of me standing, on looking bored on the shoot, on this stupid thing. Hello? Yes? I wish we had a different way of approving things.
We haven't approved that shot ever. But Neil, that's not even been approved once.
It has, actually.
Who by, then? I've not approved it.
It's been approved at some point. It's got a tick on it.
How?
And we approved
But you
them.
look like Dale Winson. I'm
I
sure
look,
you wouldn't
I
have
look
approved
worse
that.
than you. I look terrible there. I look about 90.
Pets win prizes.
The first major photo shoot we did, I wore this big parka and this white shirt. And suddenly that started to define our look. That I was more the kind of posh one, and Chris was the urchin.
The idea was always to make them look like stills from a film rather than typical pop photos. Jumping up in the air and with your hands out and a smile or laugh on your face, which was what most people did.
We wanted to have this air of mystery that we thought our music had. And we wanted them to look like they were part of something larger.
Press Photo Argument Part 2, August 1996.
So Q are going to use this because they did an exclusive picture, and the reason is it's never been used before.
Q are going to use that?
Yeah.
No, they're not. No, it's not being used.
No, it's okay. It will never be seen again. Part of that Q have got it. It's a pretty hopeless picture, I must say.
Well, we don't look exactly at the cutting edge, do we?
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things. We approved about 7 or 9 pictures at the beginning of February.
I don't recall approving them.
Well, I recall us at my house approving them.
Well, I probably wasn't paying any attention.
Well, there you are. Well, it's tough bananas. Okay. What a nightmare. Speak to you later. Bye-bye. It's just, I don't know, sometimes the whole thing just seems to fly out of control in a weird way, and there's so many people involved, and if you don't sort of sit there doing it all yourself, it just doesn't happen right. I don't know. Anyway, we've caught that. That's only gone out to Q. And also Q want an exclusive picture. So because Q want an exclusive picture, they get the worst picture, because they get the one that hasn't been used, because it's the worst picture. So the best magazine with the biggest circulation gets the worst picture. And of course it has a complete logic as to how they end up with the worst picture, because they want an exclusive. The only picture that hasn't been used, an exclusive picture, is the worst picture. So the biggest magazine has the worst picture. Anyway, it's only a photograph, for damn sake. So I left Smash Hits, and I phoned up my mother and I said, we've got a recording contract with EMI. And she said, but you're not going to leave your job, are you? And I said, well, actually, I did last week. And she was absolutely horrified. And that started a great period. Chris was staying at my flat then. And he said, could you come and sleep on my floor while he found somewhere else to live? I said, yeah, all right. And so, of course, he was there for a year, was the fact of the matter.
Neil probably said you can come down and stay for the weekend, and I probably never left or something like that.
And he did the same thing 10 years later. Came and stayed at my house in London until he found somewhere to live, and he was there for a year. And then we decided that Opportunities, Less Lots of Money, would be the first single. And we spent 3 weeks making this bloody record. Still can't believe it.
You've got the brawn, I've got the brain. Let's make lots of money. You got the brawn, you got the brain. You want money.
I think we also wanted to bring out the sadness of the song, which is why it had the line at the end about all the love we had and the love that we hide, who will bury us when we die. So that the person narrating the song, who I've always said, is a rather pathetic character who you don't believe will ever make any money. It makes it almost more of a song about loneliness than about making money, which is probably how I saw the song at that point. Then when we redid it for the album, for Please, we decided to leave the spoken bit at the end off because I thought it was too pretentious. All the love that we had and the love that we hide, who will bury us when we die? So Opportunities came out in EMI, and it got less radio play than West End Girls had got the year before. And it got to 116 or something, and that was that. And we weren't very happy about it. Anyway, we decided that we'd re-record West End Girls as our next single for EMI. It was such a lot of hang on it. Let's face it, it hadn't been a hit, it would have been dropped probably.
I think it was Stephen Haig's idea to slow it down. I'm not sure. But we wanted it to sound more moody and lush and bigger.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand that's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the police, there's a madman around, running down underground to a dive bar in a West End town. In a West End town, a dead end world, with the East End boys and West End girls. In a West End town, a dead end world, with the East End boys and West End girls. West End girls.
Chris and I used to go to a dive bar in Chinatown. It's still there. I don't know if it's still called the Dive Bar. It used to be called the Dive Bar. And it was a great place. No one used to go there. It was all Formica and a bit smelly. And there was some barman there who used to draw pictures of camp icons. And we used to love this place. Chris and I used to drink bottles of pills. And meanwhile, the record player in the corner would be playing the soundtrack of Cabaret or, kind of Barbara Streisand Live or something like that. It had a great sort of aesthetic down there. So when I was writing the words West End Girls, it was meant to be that dive bar.
Too many shadows, whispering voices, faces on posters, too many choices. If, when, why, what, how much have you got? Have you got it, do you get it? If so, how often? Which do you choose, a hard or soft option?
And also I remember when I lived in Tottenham when I was a student, when I first came to London, we used to clatter down the escalators in our huge platform heel shoes to go to Shagarama's, the first gay club I ever went to, in 1973. And there was something of that in it as well, like remembering that excitement of going to the West End. And it always feels a bit dangerous as well, to feel slightly scared, kind of wishing you weren't going really.
In a West End town, a dead end world, the East End boys and West End girls. In a West End town, a dead end world, the East End boys and West End girls. West End girls. West End girls.
I also always liked, although it sounds pretentious, The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, famous poem. And what I particularly like about it was the way it brought in different voices and different parts of history into the same poem. And it sort of drifts into it. Suddenly it's a conversation between two old women on the top of a bus. Suddenly the man in the pub is saying, "Good night, ladies, please, it's time, good night, ladies." And all that stuff. I love the idea of that. So I brought in different voices into West End Girls, like, "Just you wait till I get you home."
You got a heart of glass or a heart of stone. Just you wait till I get you home. We've got no future, we've got no past. Here today, built to last in every city and every nation, from Lake Geneva to the Finland station. And a West End town, a dead end world, the East End boys and West End girls. Oh, West End town, a dead end world, East End boys, West End girls. West End girls.
The record company didn't want to release it. I don't think they thought it was the right single at all. But we were very sure that we loved the record, so we sort of put our foot down.
And it just had this gradual climb. It was a funny time. That was quite scary in a way. It felt scary, the whole thing. Because it entered the charts really low again, just like the last one, like number 120 or something. And then suddenly it was number 84. Then it went to like 48 or something like that. And Gary Davis started to play it on Radio 1. It made a big issue out of it. And we went into the top 40, number 38 or something like that. Suddenly we had to do TV shows. And we didn't have an act. And I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. And you feel very self-conscious when the camera goes on. You're just going to stand there and mime the song. And I remember the first time we did Top of the Pops, I felt sick with nerves doing it. And I remember we were introduced by Steve Wright, who said we were the most unusual group or something. I didn't like what he said about us, really.
Yeah, that's Madonna. This really is a most unusual song from an unusual band. It's the Pet Shop Boys and West End Girls.
I swatched it 2 days later, and I was absolutely appalled. I thought we looked awful. I thought we looked really awful. Particularly me. I thought my movements looked so stiff. But we just didn't do anything.
I decided to mime to the bass part, so I looked very static because my right hand wasn't doing anything at all. It looked like I was playing with 2 fingers, which just made it out of the sleeve of my jacket or whatever.
I was horrified. I felt tearful with horror at what we looked like. I just thought we didn't look glamorous enough or something. And also we didn't do enough. It was generally felt we didn't do enough. You know, what is the act? They don't do anything. They just stand there and he mimes the song and occasionally makes a little hand gesture. And the other one just mimes the bass line, doesn't even look at the camera. It took us months, if not years, to realise that it was what we did.
There were a lot of pop groups at the time and they all used to jump around like they were really happy and stuff. And I thought, well, we're not doing that, you know. And we're not a good time party band. If you think of when Paul Young used to go on Top of the Pops, that's how most groups were. They had the singer and then they had 3 backing singers and then they had a guitarist and a keyboard player. And the keyboard player was used to sort of make tragic looks into the camera when it was on him and play with lots of fingers, and it was all very muso-y and everything. So we knew we didn't want to do that.
Chris has always been fascinated by minimalism anyway, in architecture, music, and art, everything. And it seemed it gave us a kind of minimalist ethos in terms of our performance that made us stand out from everyone else.
Off the top to number 3, Merry Christmas everyone, Shakin' Stevens. Still at 2, Saving All My Love For You, Whitney Houston. And that means we have a brand new number 1 in Britain this week, and it's a new number 1 from a new band.
They are the Pet Shop Boys, and this is West End Girls. Here they are.
They phoned up the night before and said, yes, you're going to be number 1 tomorrow morning. And Chris wasn't there. Chris was at home or something. And I phoned him up and he said, oh God, I suppose it means we've got to do Top of the Pops again, does it? And he didn't seem very excited about it. But actually we were dead excited, really. And then when we did Top of the Pops again that week, just as the camera was moving over to us, Chris hissed at me, don't look triumphant. And so we didn't. We were just minimal as usual.
Answering questions from fans, November 1996.
Hello everybody. Oh God. Chris, what are Neil's worst vices?
Oh,
and his
do we
best
really have
qualities?
vices?
No, we don't answer
Ignore
this.
it. We don't do those, you know we officially don't do those answers.
Neil, what are Chris's most upsetting vices and the loveliest aspects of his character? I like that word, loveliest. That's from Mari in Italy. Well, Mari, we officially don't do those. We used to, didn't we, right at the beginning?
That's all you ever used to get asked, you know, by like Bravo magazine.
Or even Demon Smash Hits.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely standard Geo question. And I think there's something slightly embarrassing about it, really.
It's all a bit personal, isn't it?
Yeah, the official answer is Neil is too bossy and Chris is too moody. That's the official. I can't remember what typically I can't remember what the good qualities are. Next. I think we were on such a roll with West End Girls gradually being a hit all over the place. It was quite interesting because at that point our next single didn't do that well. The single after that, Let's Spend Lots of Money, didn't really do particularly well, did okay. Did well, better in America actually. But then we sort of climbed back up again with Suburbia.
I remember the feeling that the whole thing was very unreal and I'd kind of lost footing in reality. A dream world had just taken over. I still feel like that. The whole thing seems very unreal. Neil doesn't feel like this at all. I think Neil finds the whole thing perfectly natural and can deal with it.
Listening back to unfinished songs, August 1996.
Is the champagne cold? Should we have some?
Do you think? Okay.
What have you bought it for?
Well, I was going to drink it at 8.
Do you have to wait till it?
No, I can't wait. Go on then.
Where's We Are Fat Northern Bastards? Another good one.
Banton Deck.
It's another good one. God. Ah, now wait a cotton picking minute.
This sounds good. What's this? Oh, this is Fat Northern Bastards.
All right. And Deck again. I've been doing the album with them. It's all written.
You see, it goes, we are fat, northern, and then it goes, bat, bat, bat. It's sampled from the Beach Boys, Barbara Ram. So it goes, ba, 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 bastards. Ba, 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 bastards. They're quite good. Just a little snippet there.
Excellent. The next one's called Why Not? Why not?
Indeed. Indeedy doodahs.
About the Pet Shop Boys was made by Chris Heath with Lucy Armitage. Part 2 is at 7 o'clock.